All right. Well, you've made it to the last two sections. These are our combined two sections, so this is technically like a part one, part two. I will try to get through this as quickly as possible, too, because I know you guys are ready to finish the course. After you get done with this section, take the quiz number 6, and then take your final, and you should be done. Remember, on the last day of class of the course, there will be your finals due and the artist review paper. Like I said, I'm just looking for 3 to 4, possibly 6 to the most paragraphs about something that you've done in the arts. So make sure that you get those turned in on time so you don't get punished for points. So today we're going to be talking about Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael. All right, and get through all this. This is a really popular section. More people know about the Renaissance in art than of any art genre. And like I said, this is a 400-year movement. All right. So during the 400 years, some of these artists, they didn't even know that they existed. Like Donatello, like I said, is the originator of the Renaissance and the whole idea behind the Renaissance. Now, he knew Leonardo da Vinci. He knew of him. I don't think he knew him. I'm not 100% sure on that. Raphael, he has no clue was even alive because he died before Raphael was born. Same thing goes for Michelangelo as well. So he had no clue about the Sistine Chapel and any of that movement that was going to be happening. So that just kind of gives you a ballpark on this on all this process. Now, when you think about some of the movements that we've talked about, all right. We talked about the abstract expressionists. We talked about the German expressionists. We talked about the 1940s and 30s artists during the minimalist era of World War I and World War II genre of that time period. We talked about pop art. Okay, but this genre is all of those in one. Okay, so I am literally just giving you a small taste, and the best way to do it is I'm just going off of pop culture here. You guys tend to know the four greats: Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and I say Raphael, Leo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello. So you tend to know those four greats, maybe because of a cartoon series called the Ninja Turtles. That might be the reasoning, or you just know that in just popular culture. So we're going to be covering this group. Now let's go right into Leonardo. Now, Leonardo is a very fascinating gentleman. What makes Leonardo so amazing? Well, are there secrets? Do we know everything about him? No and no. We do not know everything about him. There are secrets, sure. He set up secret organizations. So we'll be talking about those. And some of you might be part of the same organization that I'll be talking about that he was a member of, and you might understand certain. Now, I'm not a member of the same organization, and I'll talk about that when we get there. But there are some interesting things about Leonardo da Vinci. Now, I want you to look at this man that you see here and understand. When you look at him, he looks like an old man. Like everybody, when you get older, you lose some of your beauty, okay? So not everyone graciously gets old and looks pretty, okay? Some people do, but not everybody, okay? And Leonardo, I just want to let you know, first off the bat, this man was a gorgeous young man. he's been known to woo many of princesses and royal people. So yeah. Um, so I want you to know that, and he considers himself to be very handsome, and he knows it, and so he uses himself in a lot of his imagery, and I'll be pointing those out. But I want to also note that there are some things about that's going to be kind of contradicting when we get to certain art pieces as well. Like I said, he's a gorgeous young man, but there's something else that's involved. Um, so, all right. So, what makes Leonardo tick? Well, first of all, he loves to paint. And like I said, he's part of the Renaissance. He liked playing musical instruments. He liked to invent, and he was really good in mathematics. But he also, for his painting, he didn't paint a ton. Michelangelo, there's so much. Leonardo, there is a lot there, but there's not as much as other artists that are in this genre. So why did he become one of the more famous people in the genre? Well, the reason is one of the paintings he made, which we'll be starting right off the bat, and the other thing that made him so popular is his inventions. His inventions got him his notability and his notoriety. So we'll be talking about that. All right, let's get into the painting of the hour that most people know when they hear Leonardo, know of him from, the Mona Lisa. So, now, looking at her, who is she? Well, this is a question that has been brought to attention in many different forms, many different lights. I just want to point out, if you look on the internet, there's a lot of speculation. I'm even going to throw out some conspiracy theories out there for you that might be interesting to play with. Do we know? Not really. Okay, so that's one of the first things I want you to understand is we don't know who she really is. There's been people that have focused careers on who she is. Okay. That's an art historian's job if they really wanted to figure out who the Mona Lisa is. But some people kind of speculate who she is, and I'll break that down. But the first thing I want you to look at, okay, is one of the things, she's smiling. Okay, and they've even done a movie on Mona Lisa's smile with. Julia Roberts, and it's a decent movie. It's one of those. It's a good romance. What they call rom-com movie. So romantic comedy. It's cute. And it's got some historical things about the Mona Lisa. But why is she smiling? Well, first of all, paintings to have a portrait or a portrait made of you by this caliber of an artist, and by this point, this is later in his life, and if you notice, the caliber of artist at this point for him, he was super famous for his genre. So to have the Mona Lisa painted, okay, of this woman that we do not know about, because if she was royalty or nobility, we would know exactly who she is, but we have no clue who she is, and that's the mystery. Okay, so this image that we're looking at is, we know she's not royalty, and we know because the art historians would have already come out and said, oh, well, this is Princess so and so or Lady so and so, and there's nothing like that. All right. The other thing is, he spent 3 years on this painting, all right? So it meant something to him, and he carried it with him in a lot of places he went to. He didn't just leave it in his studio. He wanted it with him. It's not a very big painting. It's actually a very small painting. So when he spends less time on gigantic murals, but he spends more time on this little one, it makes you question, who is it, why is it important, and is the smile important? Well, People didn't smile in paintings back in these times, okay? It was very uncommon to see any sense of a smirk or smile. And so some people say it's kind of a that's part of the mystery of her is her smiling. That why is she smiling? Well, I think there's a reason why she's smiling, and I'll give you my 2 cents about it. But and then there's another theory out there is that it's a feminine version of Leonardo da Vinci. If you take his face and put it on top of her face when they were about the same age, their features would match up. Well, yeah, sure. If you're trying to make him feminine. But remember this, I said he was a good-looking man. Okay, when you look at her, does she look good-looking? Okay, in my opinion, she's not the prettiest face in the Renaissance I've seen. I've seen a lot of Virgin Marys and other holy relic figures that are women, and they look more. They have a better face than the Mona Lisa. So this tells me right there, yeah, if they did match up. Okay, and there are some theories out there, and they are pretty darn convincing that they match up. Could those faces be the same? Yes, but I'll tell you this right now. I do have a daughter. Now, I find myself to be a very handsome-looking man, but my wife is much prettier than I am, and so I definitely married up. There's no denying that. And when you look at my daughter, does she have features like I do? Yes, she does. She has part of my eyebrows. She definitely has my eyes, and she has my nose, which I have a really good nose. So thank God she got my nose, and so don't let my wife hear that. but yeah. So there's portions when I look at my daughter, she looks like me. Okay, she's a better looking version of me. Okay, but when I look at her and me together, yeah, we'd look alike. And as I would paint somebody, okay, and I had the same features, well, sure. So I give you this illusion that in this part that I truly believe she might be a daughter of Leonardo da Vinci. Now, this is where it gets interesting. There is nowhere in any record book talking about Leonardo da Vinci having a family. And so to have this mystery woman out there even being his daughter is kind of speculating. So again, this is it's a speculation. But if I'm going to paint somebody, and there's more than one Mona Lisa, okay, there's a couple of them, and I'll show you. If I was going to paint somebody that I loved, that no one knew about, and I spent some time on it, this makes more sense. That it's probably his daughter. Okay? Now, one of the things, look at the clothing she's wearing. Is it of royalty status? All right? Well, no, not really. I mean, it's nice, but it's not of royalty. There's no jewels around her neck. There's no pretty embroidery in her gown. Okay, she does have her hair kind of on this like veil. Okay, it's a little thin like veil that goes over the top of her head. But her hair's not done nicely. It's not in beautiful braids. So this again illustrates that she's not nobility or she's not royalty. And so again, she seems like a simple woman that's in nice clothes. So this image that we see here, well, this kind of illustrates that moment here. Now, there's people that have also tried to focus on if we could find the location of where she's at in the background, then we can figure out who she is. Well, there's been tons of people, historians, trying to find out the location. They look at topological maps and rivers and patterns and to see if they can find that location, and then they can pinpoint if she's from Italy, Spain, okay, or France, and see where she might be. But there's some mystery to that even as well on that, because no one can find the location, and it was not uncommon for them to make up a beautiful background. Okay, so so what I kind of believe, all right, who is she? Well, I believe she's probably his daughter. Okay, that's who I think she is. He was never married. And so he probably had a child out of wedlock. And why would that have been a problem? Well, when you're in noble status like he was, and his mom and dad were farmers, and he earned his right to be noble and to be part of the king and queen's court. And so to be part of that, you had to kind of, you know, be behave. Don't, if you get married, that's fine and you can have children, but to have a child out of wedlock, that's by the Catholic Church's faith, that's a really big no. And so, and being Italian, that's a big no. And so he was definitely trying to hide that from the royalty. And so that's what I believe this piece is about. Now, how can he hide it? Well, he's also part of another group. Okay, the other group that he was part of were called the Masons. Now, you might have heard of Masons. They are still a working organization. Masons, Shriners, all those are part of a chapter. And there's been many famous people that have been Masons, and they connected to each other in many ways. You're going to hear some connections between Benjamin Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci in some of the pieces when we get to the inventing side. So could they hide the identity? Sure. If you know a Mason or you are a Mason, do you talk about what you do that night? No. Is there any women involved with that organization? No. Okay, so it is a man-only organization that is only kept to themselves. All right. And so with this organization, I believe that he set up, he could hide a lot of identities of who she is. But my belief is that it's his daughter, and I'll slowly prove that as we go through. Now, here's what she looked like in 1990. All right, in a little gray box, and everybody that came to see the Mona Lisa was upset because it's hard to get into that room when it was like that. And you can see the crowd. You couldn't see it on the side. It just was a bad display. And there's a reason why they boxed her in like that. The whole idea behind her is to see her, and the lights pour. It's kind of a dark area, and it just didn't work well with the space. And so they're going to change that. But the way it looked in 1911, right here, it was out in the open and easy to see, and that's what they were trying to do with that piece, and they're trying to replicate it. Now, I also want to show you what it looked like in 1911 as well. In 2000 or 1911, for 2 years, this piece was missing. All right, she was stolen. It's not a really common knowledge. A lot of people try not to talk about it because it was a big faux pas for the museum, the world's greatest museum, to steal a piece, to have a piece stolen out of it. It was unheard of at that time. And why would you steal the Mona Lisa? Well, first of all, she's a perfect piece to steal. Okay, people would spend their whole retirements and would spend tons of money coming to Paris, sometimes just to see the Mona Lisa. And so this is where it gets kind of interesting. Okay, and so I'm going to play out a little conspiracy theory with you. Now, like I said, this is a small conspiracy theory. Not very many people talk about it, but we'll see if there's some of you that might believe it or not. Like I said, it's fun. It's kind of fun to have conspiracy thoughts. All right. Now, it was missing for 2 years. It was found. Okay. Here's the gentleman, Vincenzo. He's the one that stole it. Now, he supposedly was a night watchman kind of guy. He worked part-time, working for the Louvre, okay? And his claim is that he stole it because he fell in love with the painting, okay? Now, and what this is where it gets kind of interesting. The first year the piece was missing, nothing really happened to the museum. People still came to the museum, but a lot of people were quite disappointed that she was gone. And as word started to spread that the piece was missing, the next thing you know, people started not coming to the museum. And this is where I get a little fishy, okay? First of all, he worked for the museum, okay? And he has the piece, okay? He kept it in his kitchen, underneath his table, okay? He liked to eat meals looking at it, okay? And his best friend turned him in, okay? Now, this is where, okay, so your best friend who finds out you have the piece turns you in, okay? He gets a huge reward money for finding the finding the piece. Then this is the next part. The world's one of the ninth wonders of art almost, and he only serves 1 year in prison for stealing it. Okay? I've heard people rob liquor stores without a gun get more time, okay, than this man who stole the world's most famous painting, and he only serves 1 year, okay? If you stole another painting, even from the museum, that's not as famous, you'd get more time served, okay? So this is fishy. I don't understand why he only got this amount of time. Some people said he might be a little crazy. You'd have to be, okay, to have that painting in your house for that amount of time. Now, this is where I kind of come up with my conspiracy theory. Is she real? Okay. Now, this is where I kind of pull out like an interesting card. Or did France remake her? Now, the Louvre does have the ability to take a painting made from the same time, made from the same era, okay, have the exact same paint from that time and era, okay, that could be recreated, okay, and literally, could they recreate her? Well, some people say, well, she has cracks and flaws. Well, there's techniques to do that. And remember, the photograph in 1911 is not that strong at that point, okay? And those cracks could still be there, okay, and be recreated. But there's something also interesting. But I know the moment she returned, their museum popularity to see the Mona Lisa tripled, okay? So this is where it gets kind of interesting. So I ask you, is she fake or is she real? Okay? Now, if someone says, well, if she's fake, then where is she? Well, this is where in 1900, Greece decided that they wanted some of their pieces that were stolen from England and Paris from the Parthenon, okay? And the museums at those, like the Historical Museum in London, has a lot of the Parthenon inside the museum. And they said that year that they've had those pieces over 100 years, and those pieces are legally theirs because they've been in their country that long. After 100 years, it is legally theirs. And so I bring up this, that she might surface after 100 years of her missing. So in 2011, I was pitching that, and I was hoping she might pop up. 2013, that would have been 100 years. And so if a country came out like Germany saying, well, we've had it in our possession for 100 years, that legally she's ours, okay? And that would be the biggest scandal everywhere, that the Louvre had made a fake. And there's also some interesting things. People are not allowed to touch her, test her, and to even see if she is real after she was found. Okay, so that's another kind of little interesting moment. But there is a test that was done on her, and I'll pull it up and I'll let you see, and kind of maybe this might help prove my theory. Okay, so here. This is so. Like I said, the tourists complained about how you would see the Mona Lisa, and yeah, that is, you travel all that way from the United States, especially to see this piece, and you're kind of herded in like cattle to see it, and it's just not fun. So here she got a new look, and this is how she looks now. All right, now this is spectacular. Okay, walking into this space now. This is a special vault for her as well. So if anything should ever happen to this piece, she has a elevator that will recess into the wall, and she will go down the elevator down 6 stories into the ground into a private vault that the director is the only person that can open the vault. And so if somebody should happen to fire a weapon or a smoke alarm go off, she will then recess into the wall and immediately be gone. All right. And then those 2 panels that are there on the wall will slide forward and block in the space. Okay. So she is definitely concealed, and she's behind bulletproof glass, so no one can harm her. Would there be people out there that would possibly harm her? Yep. Sure there is, and so we'll be talking about that. I do have a video, and you could watch the video and walk right up to it. It's how it feels to walk into that room. It's definitely probably earlier in the day, because these people just walk straight up to it within 1 minute or 2 minutes. So I'll be posting that down below so you can see what the room looks like in person and what it looks like behind the Mona Lisa as well. But here you can see the crowds. This is a typical viewing of the Mona Lisa. Cameras in the air, eyes up front. And most people just spend a second or two. Here is some people. You can kind of see how. Okay. Now here's the vault, and if you don't believe me, you can see right here. Here's how she's placed into the wall. There's the elevator shaft, and so it proves that I'm not lying, that she is heavily guarded. Okay, so she will not become stolen again for sure. Okay, but people that are Dan Brown fans of the Da Vinci Code. They say in the book that the alarm was set, and the gallery director went to the Mona Lisa and put a message on the surface of the Mona Lisa. Well, when I first read that first chapter, I was like, first of all, that's false. That can't happen. Okay. And it was totally true, because she'd been gone in today's time. Okay. And so the Da Vinci Code, it's a great book. Okay. But there's no message on her, and to even prove that there's no message of her in her, okay, they did a scan. Okay, now this is where I find really interesting. They x-rayed her. Now when you look at that x-ray, all right, first of all, this is where my conspiracy kind of theory comes in. If she's fake, remember, he worked on this piece for 3 years, okay? And when you look at the x-ray, don't you think there would be a lot of mistakes beyond that paint? Don't you think you'd see some graphite drawings behind that paint, or some kind of form of drawing that would establish that piece? And you would see, constant changing and movement. And when I look at the x-ray, it's like it's been placed on there perfectly and built up with value. And so for me, this kind of makes me question about that, like, how this, that it could be, in the words of being a fake, because of there's not enough background to it. There's not enough structure that's building her, and it's almost like it's purposely built. And so that makes me kind of question, is she real or is she fake? Now, Here's other versions of the Mona Lisa. Here's when she was younger, okay, and her hair's done really nicely, okay. You can tell it's her by the nose structure, the mouth, and the very thin eyebrows and the eyebrow structure of the eyes. And yes, does she kind of have like a Princess Leia hairstyle? Definitely. And is George Lucas a huge fan of Leonardo? Yes. If you notice a lot of his sculptures and his inventions, they're very similar to a lot of the things you might see on Star Wars. So, just a little, keep that in mind if you're a Star Wars fan. This one I really think captures her likeness in a large amount. And so when I look at this, I really do believe that feels like the Mona Lisa. So this tells me one thing. Whatever he draws, he definitely draws from reality. He doesn't make up his own imagery. Who she is, she has to be real. There's multiples of her, okay, and these are in his sketchbooks. So, and they're of different age ranges, okay. One's younger versus older, okay. So this really makes me question, who is she, okay? I really believe it's his daughter. That's the honest truth, because especially in this picture, she's very endearing, okay. So, if you like the movie Da Vinci Code, it's really good. The book is better, okay? And, you know, those books like that really are great for the art world. It gets people jazzed up about art. It makes people want to go see certain art pieces. And so, yes, it is fiction. It is not reality. None of the stuff in that would have been real. But it is an interesting twist that she, you know, could have been the son of God or son of Jesus, or daughter of Jesus. That's you know, some wonderful myths on that, but no, I really do believe it's his daughter. Okay, so but if you haven't checked out the movie, check it out. It's fairly good. Tom Hanks does a good some good acting in it, like most of his movies. So. Alright, let's go to the next piece that's another Dan Brown favorite as well. The Last Supper. Now, if you want to see this piece, you better hurry. This piece is slowly dissolving. Okay, now it's not in the Louvre. This piece is in its own place in Venice, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the church is beautiful to get in there. Now, just to let you know, if you want to go see this, you have to make reservations months in advance. And if they give you a time slot, don't miss your time slot, because they will not let you in. They only let 30 people at a time go inside this room. Now, this piece is slowly falling apart because of the materials he used to make the Last Supper. He pays super attention to his details, and the layers and the values in this painting is amazing. And so what makes it so great is all the little details that he was able to get. Now, this is a fresco. It's where you paint directly into plaster onto the wall, and you use precious materials like ground up precious stones. But he did not choose to do that. He chose to do, at that point, pigments and paints. But he did add an element to it to give it this very glossy look, which at that time was breathtaking. I mean, the mural screamed off the wall, okay? And we call it today called egg to pour, okay? It's where you put egg yolk into the paint, and it gives you this shiny allure as it dries, and it stays wet. Now, to keep that egg from messing up the piece over time, from catching mold and funguses and nastiness, you add citrus to it. Now, we know this process now and these techniques now because of that, but he did not add citrus to his paint, and so by not squirting a little bit of lime juice or lemon juice inside of the paint to kill all the bacteria, this piece is slowly dissolving because of it. It's molding from the wall to the surface. Now, there are a team of people that are trying to preserve this piece and keep everything intact. The key ingredient, now, they could put bleach over it and would kill the bacteria immediately, but it would wash out the piece. So they don't want to wash it out. They want to keep everything in its original form. But the trick thing that's been working so far is vinegar. Vinegar is slowly keeping it. But like I said, this piece will slowly dissolve over time, and it will be gone. So if you want to see it while it's still bright and vibrant, I would try to go see it within the next 60 years, because I got a feeling it might not be there. Okay, here's a video talking about the space and where it's at. Click on the video below and see what you think. Alright, now here we go. So let's talk about who's in this piece. Well, if you counted all the heads, okay, how many disciples did Jesus have? If you're Catholic or anything of religion of Catholicism faith or Christian faith, you know that he has 12 disciples. Okay, and then if you count all the heads, there's 13. Okay, well, Jesus is not a disciple. Jesus is the leader. Okay, so don't let that number fool you. Okay, what is going on right here? Well, this is the moment where he's saying that one of you have betrayed me, and I will be executed because of your betrayal. And they're all like, not me, not me. Well, on the end is Judas, and he is being looked at, and his hands are up, and he's saying, it's not me. And as we know, that the last guy on the right is the one that betrayed him. So, but let's get into the centerpiece. The centerpiece is really the most important thing. So, okay, the person in green, if you're Catholic, you might know this. There are two people that get to wear green in their clothing. Okay, the first one is his father, Joseph. Okay, the second person that gets to wear green is Peter, and he's the rock of the church. So you look at Peter, and he's the original pope. So Peter is in green, okay, right next to Jesus, all right? Then we also have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, okay? Now, Matthew is over on the far right top corner, okay, standing up, okay. Mark is the older one, okay. All right, so you see him over in the far left, okay, and then we have Luke, who has the curly hair next to Peter, okay, between Peter and Jesus, and then we have John, okay. Now, John is his beloved. John is his favorite, and if you are Catholic or you believe in the Catholic faith, and if you look at the book of John, it is the one that's more personal, okay, than any of them. If you notice, every painting done in the Renaissance of John, his clothes is reverse of Jesus. Whatever Jesus is wearing, his clothing will be opposite in color, as you see here. So that automatically depicts that that is John. Now, there's lots of speculations that John in this image is Mary Magdalene. Okay, that is not true. Okay, John has been categorized in a lot of paintings as being very feminine looking. Still a male, but very feminine looking. Okay, he is not a female. So the Bible would have definitely changed that if that was the case. So we look at this and we speculate on this. Okay, But Dan Brown, okay, when you look at his Angels and Demons book, all right, he's talking about the idea that Jesus had a woman at the Last Supper, and it's the person next to him, and that's John. And it makes the shape of an M. If you look at Jesus' hand going up and back down to his other hand makes that nice little pyramid that we've been talking about, visual flow, right? But then you look at the visual flow of John going up and down, and it makes this M-like shape. Well, yes, it does make an M-like shape, but you got to remember, we've been talking about visual flow. The Renaissance set up visual flow, and it's depicting the story. There's multiple triangles throughout this play. And can you make anything sound like it's not in, conspiracy? Sure. And so, and that's what Dan Brown is doing with his Angels and Demons book. But just wanted to clarify that is a book. It is fiction, and it is not real. But we do know who these people are, and all their colors, their clothes, also helps illustrate that as well. Okay, and their personalities. So just putting that out there for you. Now, so let's get out of the Last Supper, and let's go into some of his inventions. Okay, so here we have the first tank. Now the first tank is a super strong piece. Now none of these pieces were actually invented. A few of them were, but majority of them were not invented. Because it was all theories mostly. There is a museum in Philadelphia, and if you see it in real form, that's their version. Now they try to recreate it with the same tools and the same kind of skills that were done in that time period, so to see if it would have been a functional tool. Well, just so as you see the tank there above, it was not a functional tool. It was too heavy to move. But there are other things that move and that work better, so we'll keep going, that were actually used tool. Now here, the horse and the chariot. This chariot is like a gigantic lawnmower. Now this was actually used in France to defeat the English. Okay, this kind of sickle on the end. You got to understand, he comes from a farmer's background, so he's using things that he knows, and he knows that sickles are very sharp tools, and if it can cut, wheat and hay with the greatest of ease, well, why couldn't it cut somebody with the force of a horse pulling it? And so this was one of his tools he did use. They did make this into, and it did work very well, and it started to help out for some of his nobility. Just to let you know, this is one of his first big inventions that got him some good good results. Okay, here's their recreation of it from the Da Vinci Museum in Philadelphia. He also played with the idea with ships. None of these ships were ever made. Supposedly the one at the bottom was a submarine. It really would not submerge, but it was supposed to keep you at water level and you could row in, but it really was not that great of a utensil. And the battleship with multiple cannons would not be feasible. It was too heavy. Okay, but his two-man boat, okay, this little schooner boat with a cannon on it. Now this they actually did, and they used it in Venice. Venice is known for their waterways, okay, and this would allow a little boat to move in and out and to be able to fire a heavy ammunition out of it. And you could load up a lot of little boats, and two men go out, fire, and get out of the way really quickly because they're fast little boats. So this was an actual tool that was used. Now his flying machines, none of his flying machines worked because we know he's not the first person to invent the idea of flight. His helicopter, that little whirly thing, they actually did put a live motor that would help it spin. And it did get about 2 inches of flight, and that's technical flight. It lifted off the ground continuously for 2 inches. It was just too heavy, okay, for its spinning motion, okay. Um, sorry. Well, his other like hang glider machine, he looked at bats and tried to figure out, well, why can a bat fly and a human cannot? And so he tried to make this kind of bat-like shape. If you're a Batman fan, this is where I can think of the creator of Batman. His name slipped my mind. Anyway, he looked at early Da Vinci Batman or bat winged vessels, and he used that for Batman's cape. Just FYI. So, if you're a Batman fan, you might see a lot of similar reactions to this. Now, the museum in Philadelphia, they did do their own version of this and made it more like a hang glider. And yes, that would have flown, all right, but you'd have to get up high enough. Okay, and that's the trick. Okay. Now, would he have loved hang glider? Sure, he would have loved a hang glider. Now, here is his kind of overall composition of the flying machine. Yeah, it looks pretty, but as we know, our arms aren't strong enough to keep us in flight, and so we would eventually just descend, and that's what that's about on that. Now, his parachute. It's a simple drawing made out of canvas and wood. They actually tested it, threw a dummy out, and it actually worked. It actually did work. So this was actually a beneficial thing. But again, you'd have to get up height enough. Now, cannons. He loved learning about cannons. Now, he's not the original person of cannons by any stretch of the imagination, but he did get a chance to go to China and study some things from China. What he learned about was gunpowder, and then he came back with this wonderful gunpowder, and he thought of different ways to make cannons. Now, the cannons you saw in China were typically done in wood, and he wanted to make his cannon. They typically made things out of metal, so they made their cannons out of cast iron, and they were very efficient and could work really well. But he made something that was a little bit more, taking it to the next level. The cannonball for him was more important. So here we have a gigantic cannon shooting out a large ball that has a lot of little cannonballs inside of it, that as they get in height in the air, they expand, and more little sharp cannonballs will fall onto the enemy. And so this was actually made, and it was very useful. So again, it got him some major notoriety. He also came back with a lot of multiple firing arrows. Now, Paris is known for their ability to use a longbow. Their arrows are super strong and super powerful. China's arrows were really quite weak, but they would poison the tips, and they would also use gunpowder to shoot them to get a further propulsion, just like you would see in a bottle rocket. So now. So we're going to get to... But the one thing about the arrows, it took too long to load 10 arrows onto one gun, and it just wasn't useful for that. It was faster to do one at a time. His mobile bridge was also another very important piece. Okay, this was really useful to battle against England. Okay, to get up to the top without breaking the wall, and you could be more covert and quiet. Now, the autonomy of man. Okay, this is the first autonomy book. Okay, so when he was working with the idea of man, and he started noticing the ideas that doctors would have multiple terminology for, or different types of steps that they would that they would do for procedures. Well, here, okay, he wanted the procedures to be more in sync and everything, and he asked a group of doctors, do you guys use a certain book? Well, they had a book, but there was no illustrations for the book. And so he decided that he would illustrate human anatomy with his drawing, and he would learn what the human body was consisted of. And he would use their text and their documentation and work with doctors to make the first anatomy book. And so it was very, very useful for that time. Okay? And so if you're an anatomy student and you're taking nursing, you can actually thank his program for that, because the books you use are now based loosely off of his first book. Now, this is also Leonardo at the age of 43. Again, he's very proud of his body, and he's showing the world his body here. And so, good looking guy. Oh, I hit a button here. Wait. Alright, so, sorry about that. I got a little lost in pressing the buttons. Now, so in this portion, you can see right here where he's, drawing the human anatomy, and as you look back, go back, you can see how the human anatomy and him, where he's trying to play with the shapes, and he did have a lot of human anatomy bones and muscle tissues put in there, and with the proper titles. Now, I don't speak Italian, so I don't know what is he saying inside those formulas, but they work together trying to get all that together with many doctors, and it was not uncommon for him to have cadavers in his studios, and when he worked with them. He also thought of multiple other different things with his inventions. Now here, with the inventions, you can see he has like this little tiny, it looks like an electrical copper piece. Now this is where I find really kind of interesting. When we think about electricity, who do we come in mind in our first thought? Benjamin Franklin, right? But also, when you think about all the organizations that Benjamin Franklin was part of, and all the things that he was part of with the government, it's kind of interesting how they were kind of very similar in a lot of ways. And so I believe this was passed down through the masonry, some of these technology tips that you see here, and it was just kind of passed down. And I believe Benjamin Franklin saw this and made his version. Now, like the version you see here is more about static electricity, and Benjamin Franklin made more of a current electricity. Now, another thing at the bottom here, on the right side, he was also known for making the hairpin trigger, which was very popular for bows. And if you're a person that likes to shoot weapons of guns of any kind of nature, you could probably be very thankful that he invented the hairpin trigger, so you may be able to fire your gun if you're a fan of guns. He also invented a projection box, okay, that will allow him to take a drawing and project it onto the wall. And this was something that Leonardo did, but also Michelangelo as well. Okay. Now, at the far left corner, at the bottom, he also had to deal with all these cadavers, and so he had to figure out, one of the things is they stank over time, and when you're working with, people don't smell well, so he would have to try to figure out how to make him smell better. So he was trying to do an embalming technique. It really didn't work. It more or less pickled the person, and so they smelled better, but they were all bloated. So it didn't technically work. Later on, that was perfected. But here, okay, Now, I put down this as your second David. You're going to see three Davids. The first David that you probably come to your mind is Michelangelo's David. There's three of them, okay? And when you go to certain towns that have Davids, you got to make sure you tell the right artist, because the cab driver will take you to a David they think you're talking about. So Leonardo's David. Now, this is not done by Leonardo. Leonardo is the model. Like I said, good looking guy. Okay, so here he's at the age of 15. All right, so he's the model. Okay, and he is in a very kind of provocative pose. This was very classic for that time period. All right, I know the outfit he's wearing is also very kind of seductive. The leather outfit almost feels very feminine, way the daisies are on top of the nipples and the leather is so skin tight against his chest that you can see his rib cage. So yes, it is a very seductive outfit, but like I said, he was a very provocative young man, and so he's playing off of Leonardo's sexuality in this. Now, it's only about 24 inches tall. It is made out of bronze. All right. The clothing style is very Greek influenced. If it's Greek influenced, you're going to notice it has a lot of plant life, okay, or any kind of floral arrangements. That is very Greek influenced, all right? If it has a lot of soldiers and a lot of geometric shape inside the outfits or the armor, then that is Romanesque style. Now, he is very Romanesque in his body pose. That's a very classic Romanesque pose, and his haircut is very short, and that is also very Romanesque. Okay, now we also have that it's a violent sculpture. You can see the corpse of Goliath's head at the bottom of his foot. All right. There's another piece it's the original David that I'll be showing you, and the head is even more grotesque, where you can see down the neck cavity of Goliath's head. We'll be talking about that one. All right, and the sword. Okay, each one of the Davids have different weapons. Okay, this David has a sword, and it's a small dagger-like shape. Again, I always like to pull out something funny. So you can get your own action figure if you love him so much. Now let's get into Raphael. Now Raphael is the youngest of the Renaissance artists I'll be talking about. Now, I did this talk this semester, and like I said, if there's something that you see out there and you think you might find it interesting for me, always please share. Here's a perfect example of that. I was talking about Raphael, and everyone asked, well, how did he die? Well, I just came to the conclusion that the paints that he used probably destroyed his liver, or he was a very promiscuous man, and I figured he died from a STD. I was wrong on both parts. If you Google search Raphael's death, you'll be quite shocked. Like one of the students told me in class as we were talking, Raphael died from exhaustion of sex. He had sex to death, okay, with a princess, and he did not want people to know about his affair with this princess, that he gave the wrong remedies of why he had an ailment to a doctor, and the doctor pre-diagnosed it, and he died, supposedly is what it said. So the guy had sex so much that he died. Okay, death by sex. When I found out that, I thought that was hilarious. I didn't know that, and so that's something new to me. So if you don't believe me, Google search it, you'll see. So some of these things, you just don't get taught in class, and then somebody in the class looks up the little extra thing while I'm talking and finds out. And the moment this one student found out about that, just died laughing in the middle of my lecture and had to share it. So So I share that with you now. Like I said, if you find anything, feel free to email me or let me know for future references, or take the survey at the end of the semester, and that's something you might have found that I might not have known about. Okay? But yes, he did die at a very young age. Now, besides his death, which is exciting, um, look at his ability. This man could outdraw any of them. Okay, he had the best drawing ability out of everything. He was a natural talent. His teacher is Michelangelo. Okay, so we'll be starting with Michelangelo next. But Michelangelo taught him everything he knew, and he was gifted. And so to work with an artist like Michelangelo, in my opinion, is the top greatest artist ever to live. You're going to pick up some tricks, and they're not going to just throw any young guy who's got a talent. They're going to probably put one of the better ones. I believe if he would have lived longer, he would have probably been one of the greatest. Now, the School of Athens. Now, he's part of that new wave of the Renaissance. He's leaving the whole idea about pretty Jesus pictures and pretty Roman pictures, okay, of Christianity, and he's playing more on, the idea behind mythological and philosophy. And so here he's playing with the idea of philosophy. And one of the things, when you look at this thing is huge, by the way. It's gigantic. All right, I don't even know what the full specs are on it, but it is large. Okay. Everything about Raphael that's amazing. His architecture is on point. See how the towers are little domes kind of recess into the background, and how they focus onto the center of the piece, and how the architecture kind of frames in the mass of people. Okay, when he does these things, and these people are about life size, he definitely wants that architecture to feel massive as well, and that's one of the things. So if the architecture is good, Raphael. Okay, if the colors are bright and vibrant, Raphael. If there's a character inside of it that's out of the ordinary, that stands out, again, that's Raphael. Okay, that's kind of the three trademarks of Raphael. So here, okay, we have Plato and Socrates. Socrates is in pink, okay, and Plato is in blue. Okay, if you've not taken a philosophy class, you haven't read the manuscripts of Plato by Socrates. It is a great book. When you're in college and you're young and you read it, you might just burn through it, but you might want to go back to that book, because when I was in my 30s, when I turned 30, I reread that book, and it actually made more sense as I got older. So it might be something to think back about. Maybe you might want to do one day. I don't know. I enjoyed reading it again for the second time. It made more sense. So anyway, but notice, okay, the clothing that they're wearing, those gowns or those cloths that they're wearing, it is made from different types of precious stones. So the red you see there is kind of a pinkish color. He's blending that with jade stones, okay, or not jade, but ruby stones. So he's taken that rich ruby color, and when he adds that into the plaster, it gives this pinkish tone. Now the blue you see there is from a sapphire stone, so he adds little bits of that into it, so it gives kind of a shimmery texture to it. And one of the things about having a Raphael mural, it took him a while to do it, but he added the best quality. When you got him, you got high quality inside your mural. Other artists would use cheaper stones, but not Raphael. He wanted to put the best of the best in every piece he made, which that's why he's one of the greatest at a young age as well. He even got himself a cathedral, okay, and it's right off the Vatican. It's right down the road. It's the Raphael's Cathedral, and it is beautiful, and I highly recommend, if you ever go to Rome, go check out Raphael's Cathedral after seeing the Vatican. It's smaller. It doesn't take too long to get through. But again, like I said, he puts in the highest quality stuff. Now, this is a piece that's a reaction piece to Michelangelo, okay? Here is Adam and Eve being tempted, in the Garden of Eden. Okay, now it is if you look at it's on the ceiling, or it's a partial corner ceiling piece. Now, when you look at this piece, okay, notice that the background has gold in it, little gold squares. Those are gold leaf put onto glass and then put into the plaster, okay, and so that's called a mosaic, okay, and so this was really popular at that time. Mosaics became more and more a different skill. Now he focused mostly on the frescoes and the painting, and put in high quality materials like the mosaic gold in the back. Now, when you look at Adam and Eve, notice that their body types feel very realistic. All right, and that's also very important with this, because when I show you Michelangelo's, it's going to feel a little different. Now, we'll talk about that reasoning when we get to Michelangelo, but just remember, when you look at the woman, she looks like a woman, right? She's a little heavier set than what we have today's model, but everything about her feels right. That feels like a woman, and he feels like a man, okay? Now, also notice that the serpent behind the tree is also a woman. We do not know the reason, and I'll even illustrate that when we get into Michelangelo, when we get into the Sistine Chapel. Now, the Madonna in the Meadow, okay? We've seen this piece many times, and we talked about, but again, I just want to illustrate the color. See how vibrant his colors are here? And also, notice how big baby Jesus is, okay? He has trouble with proportions with kids. Now, a lot of people say that the Renaissance people had trouble with it because babies took so long to hold still, and by the time they got done with the painting, they were fully grown, and they kept working back into the painting. I do believe that. I also think that they started with older kids as well, and that's always kind of the standby between all this, okay? But also, I pull this up because this is the first time you've seen a cherub. Now, he's known for his cherubs. Here is his little baby cherubs. Now, you've probably seen this in the holidays at Christmas. These two characters are super popular. Now, you might love them. They might be your favorite. Now, a lot of things, when you see this painting, okay, in this state, this is just a very small portion of a large painting, and it is in the Louvre, so you could go to the Louvre and see it. Here is the actual piece. It's called Sistine Madonna. Now, here is Mary and Jesus at the gate now of heaven. Now, here at the gate of heaven, instead of it being a pearly, gate, it's a curtain, and you can see at the top this kind of curtain-like feel. And then you have Pope Constantine at the entrance, and he's like, "Do I get to come in?" And so he's at the bottom there, and then we have, and I think this one is Queen Elizabeth, if I'm not mistaken, from Spain, who commissioned this piece. And so every time someone commissions a piece, they tend to put the royalty inside the painting just to kind of make them feel better about the piece. Okay, so they like it and they get paid. Now, but this is also the first time, if you look at those clouds up close, okay, you might see little faces, especially behind the Pope. This is where heaven is talked about, like with little ghost-like angels of souls, okay? So again, he's totally breaking the tradition of what the Renaissance is about. But most people love is the two cherubs at the bottom, like that they're bored and they've been there, okay? So, which they are adorable, and that's part of his characteristics. Is the architecture good? Yes. Okay. Is it got a lot of character? Yes. At the bottom, is it got a lot of high-end quality stuff? Yes. You look at the colors, it's vibrant, okay? So this is a very typical Raphael. Here again, okay, is the marriage of the Virgin. There is nothing in the Bible that talks about the marriage of Mary and Joseph. we know that they're married. Okay, it starts out that way, but here is the actual painting that's done in the Sistine Chapel, and this is a version of Michelangelo's painting, and so he's taken that style that was already done by Michelangelo, but here he even takes it a step further and makes it more vibrant. He makes it more better on detail. Like I said, he can outdraw Michelangelo at times, and this is one of those proofs of that. Now, the building in the background, you might think it's a little church. You would be wrong. Okay, beside every cathedral is what we call a baptism, and before I think it was 60 or 50s, I'm not sure, you couldn't walk into a Catholic cathedral if you weren't baptized. And so some people would want to go inside and or be part of the Catholic faith, and so what they would do is they go out here, and this is a baptism building, and so people would get baptized in that and then walk into the cathedral for the first time, and that's what that is. It's about being born into Christ. And now, again, this is what's so unusual about this. There was no such thing as a building like that before Jesus Christ, and here they're getting married in front of it. So it's kind of a weird kind of a painting, the way it's kind of it's depicting what's about to happen with Jesus, and so that's what's so important about this piece. Okay. And then George and the Dragon. I put this as your last one. It's one of my favorites. It's the most character in a painting. Okay, what is the most character? Straight out that horse. Look at that horse, okay? Now, when I see the horse, I see Eddie Murphy's voice coming out of it as Donkey, okay? As St. George is stabbing the dragon in the chest, saving that damsel in distress. If you don't think Shrek's first movie wasn't based off this painting, you would be fooling yourself. This is exactly what that movie was about. And here, they're copying that kind of stereotypical energy here of saving the damsel in distress, but having that comical flair. And I swear that horse has all the energy, and it's so funny and so captivating that it overpowers this painting. But it's one of my favorites. And tell me if you don't see and hear Donkey when you look at that horse, because I can totally be like, yeah, you got him. Thanks for stabbing that dragon, you know. And it totally has so much emotion. So, anyway, on that note, let's go into the next section and let's get done with Michelangelo and Donatello. All right, and then take quiz number 6. All right, so see you over there.